Broken heart, I never thought the day would come when my husband would look me in the eye, hold another woman's hand, and say to me, "She makes me happy in ways you never could." My heart shattered into pieces that no one could gather. I stood frozen, staring at the man I had given my life to, the father of my children, the one I thought would grow old with me. At that moment, it felt like the ground beneath me gave way, and the world turned dark. I remember my knees buckling, my chest tightening, and a sharp pain slicing through me as though someone had stabbed me deep inside. My husband didn't even try to comfort me. Instead, he turned to that woman, her red lips curled into a smug smile. And he kissed her right in front of me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to beg, but nothing came out. My voice was lost, drowned by the thunderstorm of betrayal inside me. All I could do was stand there and watch as my whole life crumbled in a single moment. And that was the night everything changed forever. But let me take you back. Let me tell you how I got here. My name is Margaret, but everyone calls me Grandma Maggie. I'm speaking to you from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm 65 years old. Before I continue with my story, please, if you're watching this, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell, because I promise you my story will keep you on the edge of your seat. And I'd love to know, from which part of the country are you watching me right now? Drop it in the comments below, because your stories matter too. Now let's begin. I grew up in a quiet little town where everyone knew each other. As a child, I never imagined that my future would be filled with heartbreak. I was raised to believe that love meant forever, that once you said "I do," it was a bond no one could break. My parents were married for more than 50 years, and I thought that would be my story too. When I first met my husband, Daniel, he was everything a young woman could dream of: tall, charming, with a smile that could melt the coldest heart. He was a church boy, always holding the Bible, always saying the right things. Everyone in town adored him. When he looked at me, I felt like the only woman in the world. He pursued me with flowers, love letters, and late-night calls that made me blush under the sheets. When he proposed to me on the hill overlooking our small town, I cried tears of joy. I thought God had answered my prayers by giving me a man who loved me so deeply. But you see, life has a cruel way of hiding storms behind sunshine. Our wedding day was magical. I wore a simple white dress that my mother sewed with her own hands. Daniel held my hand so tight as he whispered promises that he would never leave me, never hurt me, and would love me until death. Everyone clapped, cheered, and blessed us. And I believed him. Oh, how I believed him. The early years of our marriage were sweet. We moved into a small apartment, barely had enough money to eat, but every night we laughed, cooked together, and dreamed of the future. Soon God blessed us with children, 2 boys and a girl, and my heart was full. I dedicated my whole life to raising them, to being a good wife, to making our house a home. But Daniel, he started to change. At first, it was small things. He would come home late, smelling of perfume that wasn't mine. He would hide his phone when I walked into the room. He became impatient with me, snapping at the smallest things. When I asked him what was wrong, he'd say, "Nothing, you worry too much." But deep down I knew. A woman's heart always knows. One day, I followed him. My hands shook as I trailed behind his car. He stopped at a cafe, and there she was, a younger woman dressed in a tight red dress. They laughed, they touched hands, and when he kissed her forehead, my world began to crumble. I couldn't confront him that day. My heart was too weak, my body too scared. I went home, cooked his dinner, and pretended nothing was wrong. But inside I was breaking piece by piece. For months I lived in silence, watching the man I loved slip away into the arms of another woman. I prayed every night, asking God to bring him back to me, to remind him of the promises he made. But instead, his love for me grew colder. And then came that night. The night when he finally confessed. The night when he chose her over me. The night when my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. But my dear, that was only the beginning. Because what happened after that night was something I never expected. The night Daniel confessed was like standing in the middle of a storm with no shelter. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Maggie, I can't keep lying anymore. I love her. I've chosen her." I remember clutching my chest, as though my heart was about to leap out. My whole body trembled, and tears fell faster than I could wipe them. I thought maybe I had misheard him, Maybe he was angry and speaking out of frustration. But no, his eyes told the truth. They weren't the eyes of a man in conflict. They were the eyes of a man who had already made up his mind. I asked him, my voice shaking, "What about our children? What about me? What about the vows we made?" But he only sighed and said, "They'll understand. And you're strong, Maggie. You'll survive without me." Survive? That word cut me deeper than a knife. After decades of standing by him, sacrificing my youth, my dreams, my body, my everything, he was walking away as though I were nothing more than a shadow. That night I screamed. I screamed so loud the neighbors knocked on the door, asking if everything was all right. But nothing was all right. Nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed were dark. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I would sit in my rocking chair, staring at the walls, waiting to wake up from the nightmare. My children noticed my silence, but I forced a smile for them, hiding the storm raging inside. I kept asking myself, what did she have that I didn't? Was it her beauty? Her youth? Her laughter? Did I become too old, too boring, too invisible? The questions clawed at me like wild dogs, leaving me with no peace. But you see, life doesn't stop when your heart shatters. Bills still pile up. Children still need food. The world still moves on, even if your soul is stuck in yesterday. One afternoon, I went to the market to buy groceries. My hands shook as I picked up tomatoes, my eyes red from crying all night. That was when I overheard two women whispering behind me. "That's Daniel's wife," one of them said. "Poor woman," the other replied. "He's already living with the new lady now. Everyone in town is talking about it." My knees almost gave way. My Daniel, already living with her? My heart bled afresh. The humiliation was worse than the heartbreak. Everyone knew. Everyone was laughing behind my back. But that was not the worst part. That evening when I returned home, I saw something that nearly drove me mad. Daniel was standing in front of our house with her, hand in hand, smiling, laughing, as though I had never existed. And then, oh Lord, then he brought her inside. Into the house I had built with him. Into the home where I raised our children. My body froze. My hands turned cold. My lips trembled. I wanted to throw them out, to scream, to fight. But I stood like a ghost in my own house, watching my husband lead another woman into my kitchen, into my living room, into my life. And that was when I realized my nightmare had only just begun. I will never forget that night. Daniel stood at the doorway of our home with her by his side, holding her hand as though she were some queen being ushered into her palace. I felt like a stranger in my own house. The walls that once echoed with my laughter, the kitchen that carried the smell of my cooking, the living room where my babies took their first steps, all of it suddenly felt stolen. She stepped in with her high heels clicking on the floor, her perfume filling the air, stronger than mine ever was. She looked around like she owned the place. Daniel had the nerve to say, "Maggie, this is Sharon. I want you to respect her. She's part of my life now." Respect her? My mouth went dry. My body shook with anger. Respect the woman who destroyed my marriage? The woman who stole my husband? The woman who walked into my house as though she had earned the right to be there? But before I could even speak, Sharon smirked and said, "Nice home, but a little outdated. Don't worry, I'll help Daniel fix it up." Her words were like a knife in my chest. Outdated? She was already planning to change everything I had built. My curtains, my furniture, my memories. I shouted, "Get out! Both of you! Get out of my house!" But Daniel only raised his voice above mine. "Maggie, calm down. This is my house too. You don't get to decide who comes in." That moment broke me even more. The man who once protected me now stood against me, defending her. The days that followed were filled with chaos. Daniel started bringing Sharon around more often. Sometimes she would sit on my couch, cross her legs, and flip through magazines as though she had always belonged there. My children looked at me with confusion in their eyes, asking, "Mom, why is she here?" I had no answers. All I had were tears I tried to hide. I started avoiding the living room when she came. I would lock myself in the bedroom, pressing my face into my pillow so no one could hear me cry. Nights were the worst. Daniel stopped sleeping in our bed. Instead, he would stay out late and sometimes he didn't come home at all. I prayed. Oh, how I prayed. Lord, please open his eyes. Remind him of the vows he made to me. Bring my husband back. But the more I prayed, the further away he drifted. One Sunday I decided to go to church, even though my spirit was heavy. I wanted peace. I wanted strength. As I sat on the pew, the pastor preached about forgiveness, about trusting God even in pain. I tried to hold on to his words. But then as I walked out of the church, I saw them. Daniel and Sharon, hand in hand, walking into the same church I had gone to all my life. My heart skipped. People whispered. The stares burned into me like fire. And the worst part? Daniel didn't even care. He walked in proudly, introducing her as though she were his wife. That day I ran home. I locked the door and broke down on the floor, wailing like a child. My children tried to comfort me, but how could they? How could they understand the pain of seeing their father choose another woman so openly, so shamelessly? And just when I thought the humiliation couldn't get worse, it did. One evening, I overheard Daniel speaking on the phone. His words froze me in place. He said, "Maggie will have to move out soon. Sharon doesn't like staying there with her. I'll make the arrangements." My blood ran cold. He wasn't just bringing Sharon into my home. He was planning to throw me out of it. And that was the moment I realized. My fight was no longer about saving my marriage. It was about survival. I couldn't believe my ears. My own husband, the man I had stood beside for decades, was plotting to kick me out of the very house I had built with him. The same house where I carried 3 children in my womb. The same house where I worked day and night to keep a family alive. That night I sat on the floor in the corner of my room, my knees pulled to my chest, trembling like a child lost in the dark. Tears soaked my nightgown, but anger began to burn beneath the pain. "No," I whispered to myself. "Not my house. Not my children's home. Not after everything I sacrificed." The next morning I confronted him. My voice shook, but I stood tall. "Daniel," I said, "I know what you're planning. You want me out so you can bring her in. But I won't leave. This is my home too. If you want me gone, you'll have to drag me out with your own hands." For the first time I saw a flash of guilt cross his face. But it disappeared as quickly as it came. He narrowed his eyes at me and said coldly, "Maggie, don't make this harder than it has to be. Sharon doesn't feel comfortable with you here. It's only fair that you move on with your life." "Fair?" I screamed. "Was it fair when I gave you my youth, my strength, my loyalty? Was it fair when I carried your children while you chased another woman? Was it fair when I stayed up nights waiting for you while you were in her bed?" The children heard the fight. My daughter, Emily, rushed into the room, her little face twisted in fear. "Mom, please stop crying. Daddy, please don't make Mommy leave." But Daniel just clenched his jaw, turned away and walked out, slamming the door behind him. The days dragged painfully. Each morning I woke with dread, wondering when the blow would come. I watched as Daniel and Sharon grew bolder. She started leaving her clothes in the bathroom, her shoes by the door, her perfumes on the dresser. It was as if she was marking her territory, slowly erasing me from my own life. I tried to stay strong for my children, but I was drowning inside. At night, I would sneak into the boys' room and watch them sleep, whispering prayers over their tiny heads. "Lord, protect them from this pain. Don't let their father's sins destroy their childhood." But even in my prayers, I felt weaker and weaker. One evening, Emily walked up to me and asked, "Mom, why does Daddy love her more than you?" Those words shattered me in a way Daniel never could. What could I tell her? That love was cruel? That loyalty meant nothing? That sometimes even the man you trust the most becomes a stranger? I pulled her into my arms and said, "Sweetheart, Daddy is confused. But I love you. I will always love you. And that will never change." But then came the breaking point. One Friday night, I came home from the store carrying bags of food. When I stepped into the living room, my heart stopped. Sharon was sitting on my couch, wearing my dress. The same blue dress Daniel had once told me was his favorite on me. And Daniel, oh God, Daniel was sitting right beside her, laughing, his arm wrapped around her shoulder like she was already his wife. When he saw me, he didn't even flinch. He just said, "Maggie, we need to talk. It's time you started packing your things." The grocery bags slipped from my hands. Apples rolled across the floor. My whole body went numb. I opened my mouth to reply, but no words came out. My vision blurred. The room spun around me, and then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, everything was blurry. My head pounded, my chest ached, and I felt weak all over. At first, I thought maybe I had woken from a nightmare, but then I saw them. Daniel, standing over me with Sharon by his side, both of them looking down at me as if I were some burden on the floor. My daughter Emily was crying, shaking me, shouting, "Mommy, wake up!" I tried to sit up, but my body was too heavy. My lips trembled as I whispered, "Water, please." Emily ran to get me a glass, but Daniel didn't move. He just stood there, arms crossed, while Sharon whispered something in his ear. I saw the corner of her mouth lift into a smile. And that was when it hit me. She was enjoying my pain. I wanted to scream at her, to throw her out of my house, but all I could do was lie there, weak and broken, while the man I loved chose her comfort over mine. Finally, my eldest son, Michael, came running into the room. He pushed past Daniel and Sharon, helped me to sit up, and held the glass of water to my lips. His eyes burned with anger. "Dad, what's wrong with you? She's your wife. And you let her collapse while you stand there doing nothing." For the first time, Daniel looked uncomfortable. He rubbed his neck and muttered, "I didn't want her to fall, but Maggie does this to herself. She refuses to move on." "Move on?" Michael shouted. "She's your wife. We're your children. Move on from what? From us." Sharon touched Daniel's arm gently, pretending to calm him, but I could see the victory in her eyes. She wanted me gone. She wanted me erased. That night, Michael stayed by my side until I could walk again. I heard him whisper in the dark, "Mom, don't worry. I won't let him throw you out. Not while I'm here." His words gave me a little strength, but inside, I knew this war was only just beginning. Days passed and Daniel grew colder. He stopped talking to me completely, as if silence would make me disappear faster. Sharon's presence became bolder. She started cooking in my kitchen, answering the phone, even sitting at the head of the dining table during meals. One night, I heard laughter in the living room. I walked quietly and stopped at the doorway. Daniel was dancing with Sharon, twirling her around to music I used to play when it was just him and me. My hands trembled as I clutched the wall. Every laugh, every touch, every glance between them stabbed me deeper than any knife. I went back to my room, shut the door, and fell to my knees. "God," I cried. "How much more do you want me to take? Am I not already broken enough?" But even as I prayed, I knew the storm wasn't over. A few nights later, the extreme blow finally came. Daniel came into the room, his face hard as stone. In his hand, he held an envelope. He dropped it on the bed and said, "These are the papers. I've already filed for divorce. And I want you out of this house by the end of the month." My hands shook as I opened the envelope. The words blurred through my tears, but one thing was clear. He was cutting me off completely. No discussion. No merci. I looked up at him, my voice breaking. "After everything we built, after everything we shared, this is how you end it? By throwing me away like trash." But Daniel didn't flinch. He just turned and walked out of the room, into Sharon's arms. And that was the moment I knew. The man I married was gone forever. But what I didn't know was that something darker, something far more dangerous, was about to unfold. Because Sharon wasn't just here to steal my husband. She wanted to destroy me completely. The night Daniel handed me the divorce papers, my world caved in. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the envelope in my lap, my hands trembling too much to hold it steady. Those papers weren't just words on paper. They were a death sentence to the life I had spent decades building. But worse than Daniel's betrayal was the shadow I saw in Sharon's eyes whenever she looked at me. It wasn't enough for her to have him. No. She wanted me crushed, humiliated, erased. I didn't have to wait long to see it unfold. The next morning, I went into the kitchen to prepare breakfast for my children, hoping to give them some sense of normal life. But when I opened the fridge, half the food was gone. The milk, the eggs, the fruit, all missing. Sharon stood at the counter with a smug smile, holding a plate of pancakes. "Oh, Maggie," she said sweetly. "I hope you don't mind. Daniel and I made breakfast earlier." I didn't realize you were planning to cook too. I clenched my fists. That food was for my children. She tilted her head, feigning innocence. Well, they'll have to get used to sharing, won't they? Things are different now. Different. Yes. Everything was different. My house didn't feel like my house anymore. My kitchen, my table, even my husband's voice, all stolen. When Daniel walked in and saw the tension, he didn't defend me. Instead, he kissed Sharon on the cheek right in front of me and said, "Maggie, don't cause trouble. She's trying to help." Help? I turned away before they could see my tears. But Sharon wasn't satisfied with just mocking me. She began turning Daniel against me in deeper ways. I overheard her whispering lies into his ear. "She doesn't respect you anymore. She's only pretending to be sick to get sympathy. She's holding you back from the life you deserve." And the more she spoke, the more Daniel withdrew from me. He started avoiding conversations, locking his phone, even refusing to eat the meals I cooked. My children saw everything. Michael's anger grew daily, Emily cried every night, and the younger boys sat in silence, confused and broken. I tried to shield them, but I was breaking too. One evening I sat alone in the garden, the moonlight casting shadows across the grass. I clutched my Bible in my hands, whispering prayers through tears. "Lord, please don't let me lose everything. Don't let them take my children too." That was when I heard footsteps behind me. Sharon's voice cut through the night like poison. "You should just give up, Maggie. Daniel doesn't love you anymore. He's mine now. The sooner you accept that, the less painful it will be." I turned to her, my voice shaking with fury. "You will never replace me. I am his wife. I am the mother of his children. You will never take my place." She leaned close, her smile wicked. "Oh, but I already have." I thought her words were the cruelest thing she could ever say. But I was wrong. The very next day, I discovered the unimaginable. When I walked into the living room, I found Daniel and Sharon sitting together, holding documents. My heart sank as I realized what they were. Custody papers. Sharon wasn't only after my husband, she was after my children. When I saw the papers in Daniel's hands, my blood turned cold. The letters blurred before my eyes, but I could read enough to understand. Custody. They weren't just taking my husband away from me, they wanted my children too. I stumbled forward, my voice trembling. "Daniel, what is this?" He didn't meet my eyes. He just handed the documents to me and said flatly, "It's better this way. Sharon and I can give them a stable home." Stable? I almost choked on the word. My hands shook as I held the papers. A stable home? In the arms of another woman while their mother is still alive? While I sit here breathing, bleeding, praying for my children. How dare you? Tears poured down my face, but Daniel stayed unmoved. Sharon leaned back in her chair, smirking, her legs crossed like a queen who had already won. "Maggie," she said softly, "the children need a future. A happy one. You're too weak to give them that." Her words cut me like a blade. Weak. That's how she saw me. That's how Daniel let her paint me. Michael stormed into the room, snatching the papers from my hands. He ripped them into pieces, his voice shaking with fury. "Over my dead body. You'll never take us away from Mom." Daniel stood, his face red with anger. "Michael, you will respect Sharon." But Michael stood his ground, his fists clenched, his eyes blazing with the fire of a son protecting his mother. "Respect? You want me to respect the woman who destroyed our family? You're not my father anymore. You're just a stranger wearing his face." The room fell silent. Even Sharon's smile faltered for a second. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My body was exhausted, but my mind refused to rest. Every word, every laugh between Daniel and Sharon echoed in my ears. The fear of losing my children gnawed at me like a wild beast. I realized then that I couldn't just sit back and pray for a miracle. I had to fight. Not for Daniel, not for the marriage, but for my children, for the only love left in my life. The next morning, I went to see a lawyer. My hands trembled as I explained everything. The affair, the humiliation, the papers. The lawyer listened quietly, then said, "Maggie, if he pushes this case, it could get ugly. But you have rights. Don't give up." Those words gave me a spark of hope. I wasn't completely powerless. When I returned home, Sharon was in the kitchen again. She turned to me with that wicked smile. "Did you enjoy your little trip? You know, Maggie, you can fight if you want. But Daniel belongs to me now. And soon, so will everything else." For the first time, I didn't cower. I didn't let her words break me. I stood tall, lifted my chin and said, "You may have him, Sharon. But you'll never have my soul. And you will never have my children." Her smile faltered. Just for a second. But that second was enough for me to know I wasn't defeated yet. But before I could gather my strength, something happened that shook me to my very core. Late one night, as I walked past the living room, I heard Sharon's voice, cold, sharp, whispering into the phone. She said, "Don't worry. Once she's out of the way, everything will be ours. She won't last much longer." My heart stopped. Out of the way. What did she mean? I froze in the shadows, realizing the horrifying truth. Sharon wasn't satisfied with stealing my husband, or even my children. She wanted me gone. Completely. My blood ran cold as I hid in the shadows that night, listening to Sharon's whispered words. "Once she's out of the way, everything will be ours. She won't last much longer." I covered my mouth to keep from gasping aloud. My knees went weak. Was she really planning something against me? I slipped back into my room quietly, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would leap from my chest. I sat on the edge of the bed, shaking uncontrollably, asking myself over and over, did I really hear that? Or am I losing my mind? But I knew what I heard. And it was enough to make sleep flee from my eyes completely. The following days felt like walking on broken glass. Every time Sharon entered a room I felt a chill. Her smile seemed sharper, her tone more mocking, her laughter louder and colder. Daniel was blind to it all. Wrapped around her finger like a puppet. I began to notice strange things happening around the house. One morning as I was about to drink from my cup of tea, Emily ran into the room tripping over the rug. The tea spilled before I could taste it. At first I was upset, until I noticed a strange bitter smell rising from the liquid. Sharon was standing at the doorway watching silently. Her smile widened before she walked away without a word. Another evening I slipped on the kitchen floor. When Michael came running to help, he noticed oil smeared across the tiles. My hand shook as I looked at the mess. I hadn't cooked with oil that night. Someone had poured it deliberately. Each incident was small, easy to dismiss, but deep down I knew. Sharon wasn't just plotting with words. She was moving against me in secret. I confided in Michael one night. He sat across from me, his jaw clenched, his fists tight. "Mom, you're not imagining this. She wants you gone. I'll keep watch." His words gave me courage, but they also filled me with dread. What if Sharon tried something when I wasn't looking? What if my children got caught in her trap too? I prayed harder than ever, whispering in the darkness, "Lord, shield me. Protect my children. Don't let her succeed." But prayer didn't silence the fear. Then came the breaking point. One afternoon, I was cooking in the kitchen when the youngest, David, came running to me, holding something in his tiny hands. His face was pale, his voice trembling. "Mom, I found this under your pillow." When I opened his little hands, my heart almost stopped. It was a bottle of pills. Strong, dangerous pills. The kind that could kill if swallowed in large amounts. And I knew. I had never put them there. My hands shook as I looked toward the hallway. Sharon was standing there, leaning against the wall, her arms crossed, her eyes locked on mine. And then she smiled. The bottle of pills trembled in my hands as David stared up at me with wide, frightened eyes. My chest tightened, my breath shallow. I knew then, Sharon wasn't only trying to replace me. She wanted to destroy me completely. I clutched my son to my chest, whispering, "It's all right, baby. Mommy's here." But my eyes never left Sharon's figure leaning casually against the wall. Her smile was calm, cold, deliberate. She wanted me to know it was her. She wanted me afraid. I hid the pills quickly before the children could see more, but my mind was racing. If I confronted Daniel, he wouldn't believe me. He never did. He would think I was paranoid, desperate, even unstable. And that was exactly what Sharon wanted. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the window made me jump. My heart pounded like a drum, and sweat soaked my sheets. What if Sharon tried something worse? What if she tried to hurt my children just to get to me? I kept vigil by their doors, watching them breathe as they slept. The next morning, Daniel confronted me. His voice was sharp, his expression filled with false concern. Maggie, Sharon found some pills hidden in your room. She's worried about you. Are you trying to harm yourself? The audacity nearly knocked me to my knees. Sharon stood beside him, her hand resting on his arm, pretending to be the worried angel. Daniel, that's not true. I cried. She planted them there. She's trying to set me up. Daniel's jaw tightened. You sound insane, Maggie. You're losing your grip on reality. I couldn't believe it. My own husband, blind, deaf, and chained to the lies of another woman. Michael stepped in, his fists clenched. Dad, open your eyes. She's lying. Mom would never. But Daniel cut him off. Enough. I won't have you disrespecting Sharon. Michael stormed off, slamming the door, and I stood frozen, the weight of betrayal crushing my chest. For days, Sharon tightened her grip. She whispered poison into Daniel's ear, making me the villain in my own home. She followed me with her mocking smiles, left little traps for me to stumble into, and made sure Daniel always caught me in the worst light. I felt the walls closing in. My children's worried eyes followed me everywhere, their small voices asking, Mom, are you okay? And I smiled for them, even as I bled inside. But then the unthinkable happened. One evening I returned home from the store and found flashing lights outside the house. Police cars. My stomach dropped. I rushed inside, only to find two officers standing in the living room. Daniel looking grim, Sharon clutching her chest as if she had been wronged. One of the officers turned to me and said, Ma'am, we received a call about a domestic disturbance. And there are claims that you've been endangering yourself and possibly your children. We need to ask you some questions. My mouth went dry. My knees buckled. I looked at Sharon, and for the first time, she didn't bother to hide her triumph. Her lips curved into a smile so slight, so wicked, only I could see it. This wasn't just about stealing my husband anymore. Sharon was trying to have me removed from my own home, permanently. The flashing red and blue lights painted my walls in colors of shame. I stood frozen in the living room, my hands trembling as the officers stared at me with suspicion. Sharon stood beside Daniel, her crocodile tears dripping, her hands clasped like an innocent victim. She needs help, Sharon whispered dramatically. She's been unstable for weeks. I'm scared for the children. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out every other sound. I wanted to scream, to rip the mask off Sharon's face and show the world who she really was. But my voice caught in my throat, strangled by fear. Ma'am, one officer said, please come with us to answer some questions. The children cried out at once. Emily threw herself at my waist, sobbing, Don't take Mommy. Please don't take her. Michael stood in front of me like a shield, shouting, This isn't right. She didn't do anything. The officers hesitated. Their eyes flickered between Sharon's fake sobs and the children's desperate cries. And then, Michael did something that changed everything. He ran to the cabinet, pulled out the little bottle of pills David had found under my pillow, and held it up. His voice shook with anger. These. Sharon put them there. I saw her near Mom's room. She's been trying to set Mom up. The room froze. Daniel's face drained of color, his eyes darting to Sharon. For the first time, doubt cracked his mask. Michael, he stammered. You don't know what you're talking about. But Michael cut him off. Yes, I do. I've been watching her. She poured oil on the kitchen floor. She messed with Mom's tea. And now she called the police to take her away. The officers turned sharply to Sharon. Her tears vanished. Her mask slipped. Are you accusing me of attempted harm? She spat, her voice trembling with rage. Michael stepped forward, his young body trembling but firm. Yes. And I'm not the only one who saw. David found the pills. Emily saw you near Mom's tea. You're the liar, not her. The officers exchanged looks. One pulled Sharon aside, asking her questions, while the other took statements from my children. I watched, my breath shaky as Sharon's composure cracked. Her sweet tone disappeared, replaced by harsh, stammering denials. Daniel rubbed his forehead. looking like a man who had just awakened from a long, poisonous dream. Finally, one officer turned to me. "Ma'am, we'll be investigating this further. For now, you and your children are safe. But I suggest you keep some distance from her." That night, Sharon was forced to leave. Daniel begged me to listen, his voice hoarse. "Maggie, I was wrong. I didn't see it. I didn't protect you. I was blind." I stared at him, my heart torn. I thought back to every cruel word, every moment he chose her over me, every time he doubted my truth. "I lost my husband long before tonight," I whispered. "You gave yourself away willingly." He dropped to his knees, but I turned away. My children clung to me, and that was all that mattered. In the weeks that followed, Sharon's schemes unraveled. The investigation proved her lies. She was exposed for her deceit, her cruelty, and her dangerous intent. Daniel tried to make amends, but trust, once broken, was like shattered glass. It could never be the same. I chose peace. I chose my children. I chose myself. My heart had shattered when my husband chose another woman over me. But in that brokenness, I found a new kind of strength. I learned that betrayal may wound deeply, but it does not define who you are. The life lesson? Sometimes losing someone who never valued you is not a loss at all. It's the beginning of freedom. And to anyone watching my story right now, remember this. Love yourself enough to walk away from what destroys you. Protect your peace because no one else will do it for you. The gavel's sound echoed through the courtroom, sharp and final. Sharon stood before the judge, her perfect hair falling out of place as the sentence was read. "For falsifying claims and attempted harm, you are hereby restricted from contacting the family." My heart raced. The woman who had nearly destroyed me was finally silenced. I should have felt relief, but instead, I felt emptiness. Daniel sat 2 rows behind me, his head bowed in shame. He had not been charged with anything, but in my heart, his guilt was heavier than hers. He betrayed me long before Sharon's lies ever came to light. As I walked out of the courtroom, reporters swarmed the steps. Microphones were thrust in my face. "Mrs. Miller, do you have anything to say about the case? Do you feel vindicated now that Sharon has been exposed?" I stopped, looked directly into one of the cameras, and said the words I never thought I'd hear myself say. My husband chose another woman over me, and my heart shattered. But sometimes, heartbreak opens the door to freedom. Don't ever let betrayal convince you that you are worthless. The crowd erupted in murmurs. I walked away, my children at my side, but deep inside, my soul was still bleeding. Life after Sharon wasn't as simple as peace. Daniel began showing up at the house with flowers, with apologies, with promises. "Maggie," he pleaded one evening at the door. "I see it all now. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Please don't give up on me." I studied his face, the face of the man I once loved. But all I could see were the nights he left me crying in my bed while he was with her. All I could hear were the words, "You sound insane, Maggie," when I begged him to believe me. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you," I whispered, shutting the door. But forgiveness has a way of chasing you. Weeks later, I began to feel the weight of loneliness. The children were in school, the house grew quiet, and my mind filled with memories. The good ones, the bad ones, all tangled together. At night, I sometimes found myself scrolling through old photos. Our wedding day, our family vacations, the moments when I thought love was unbreakable. I hated myself for it, but part of me still longed for what I had lost. And then one evening, I received a phone call that shattered the fragile ground I had just begun to stand on. The voice on the other end was trembling. "Mrs. Miller, it's about your husband. He's been in an accident." My blood turned to ice. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. Daniel, after everything, was fighting for his life. The hospital hallway smelled of antiseptic and fear. My heels clicked against the cold tiles as I rushed forward, my chest pounding with every step. Emily clutched my hand, her small voice trembling. "Mom, is Dad going to die?" I wanted to answer, but the truth sat heavy in my throat. I didn't know. When I reached the emergency room doors, I saw him. Daniel lay on the stretcher, tubes in his nose, blood staining his shirt. His face, once the face of the man who betrayed me, looked pale and fragile. For a moment, I felt the years slip away. I saw the young man I married, The one who once swore to protect me forever. A doctor stepped forward. Mrs. Miller? He suffered internal bleeding from the crash. We're preparing for surgery. He kept asking for you before he went unconscious. My knees nearly gave out. Why me? After all the pain, after Sharon, after abandonment. Why was I the one he called for in his last moments of clarity? Emily began to cry, while Michael stood stiff, his fists clenched. Why should we care, Mom? He left us for her. He chose her over you. His words sliced through the air, sharp and raw. And yet, I couldn't silence the part of my heart that still ached for Daniel. Hours passed. I sat in the waiting room, memories crashing over me like waves. The way Daniel held my hand the day Emily was born. The nights we stayed up laughing until sunrise. And then, the nights I cried alone, knowing he was in Sharon's arms. When the surgeon finally came out, I stood, bracing myself. He made it through surgery, the doctor said. But his condition is critical. He may not wake up soon. Relief and dread collided in my chest. I walked into his room. The steady beep of machines filled the silence. Daniel looked so still, so breakable. For the first time in years, I reached out and touched his hand. Why, Daniel? I whispered. Why did you destroy us? Why did you destroy me? His eyelids fluttered. My heart stopped, and then his lips parted, a faint whisper escaping. Maggie, I'm sorry. But there's something you don't know. Before he could finish, the monitors shrieked. Nurses rushed in, shouting codes, pushing me aside. I stood frozen as they fought to save him, his words echoing in my head. There's something you don't know. What secret could he have been keeping? After all the lies, after Sharon, after everything. The hospital room fell into chaos as nurses rushed around Daniel's bed. Their voices urgent, their hands moving swiftly over his fragile body. The beeping of machines turned into sharp alarms. Clear, one of them shouted, pressing the paddles to his chest. His body jerked violently. I pressed myself against the wall, trembling. My children clung to me. Emily sobbing, Michael glaring with silent fury. For a terrifying moment I thought he was gone. But then the steady beep returned. Daniel's chest rose weakly. The room exhaled in relief. When the nurses stepped back, the doctor turned to me. He's stable but still critical. If he wakes up, it may not be for long. I nodded numbly, but my mind was elsewhere. Those words he had tried to speak. There's something you don't know. What could he have meant? Hours blurred into days. I barely left the hospital. Emily brought me water, Michael stayed distant, and David, the youngest, often fell asleep in the chair beside me. One evening as the sun dipped low, the room bathed in orange light, Daniel stirred again. His eyes fluttered open. Weakly he turned his head toward me. Maggie! His voice was barely a whisper. I leaned closer, gripping his hand. I'm here. What were you trying to tell me? Tears welled in his eyes. I thought Sharon was what I wanted, but she wasn't. He coughed, his voice cracking. It wasn't just love, Maggie. It was blackmail. My heart lurched. Blackmail? What are you talking about? He squeezed my hand weakly, as though gathering his last strength. She knew something about my past. I wasn't faithful even before her. And when she found out, she threatened to ruin everything if I left. His words hit me like stones. Betrayal upon betrayal. Sharon hadn't just stolen him, she had chained him. I pulled back, anger and sorrow battling inside me. So you stayed with her because you were trapped? And you let me think I wasn't enough? You let me suffer? Tears rolled down his cheeks. I was a coward. But Maggie, it goes deeper. She wasn't the only one who knew. There's someone else. Someone closer than you think. His breathing grew shallow. His grip loosened. Who? I cried. Daniel, who? His eyes rolled back and the monitors screamed again. Doctors rushed in, pulling me away as his body convulsed. I screamed his name, but deep down I knew. He was slipping further from me. And the secret he carried, the someone closer than I think, was about to destroy everything I thought I knew about my family. The machine screamed again, and my heart sank as the doctors rushed Daniel back into emergency care. His words still echoed in my mind like a haunting drumbeat. Someone closer than you think. Who? Who could it be? My family circle was already fractured. My children? Impossible. My friends? My neighbors? The thought burned through me like fire. Emily tugged at my sleeve. Mom, what did Dad say? Why are you shaking? I couldn't tell her, not yet. Not until I knew. That night, after the hospital grew quiet, I sat alone in the parking lot, staring at the dark sky. The stars blurred as tears filled my eyes. Betrayal upon betrayal, and now, another shadow waiting to be revealed. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number lit the screen. You think Sharon was the only one? You don't know half of what your husband did. Ask your sister. My blood ran cold. My sister Clara. The one who had stood by me during my divorce papers. The one who promised me I wasn't alone. I tried to steady my breathing. Could Clara, the woman I trusted most, have been tied to Daniel's betrayal? I called her immediately. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. By midnight I drove to her house. Lights were off but her car was in the driveway. I knocked furiously. Finally the door creaked open. Clara stood there, her face pale, her eyes swollen as if she had been crying. Maggie, she whispered, almost trembling. I stepped inside without asking. What did you do? What are you hiding from me? She froze, her lips parting but no words coming. My heart pounded. Clara! I screamed. Was it you? Did you help Sharon? Did you betray me too? Her silence was an answer. She collapsed onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. I never wanted you to find out this way, she choked, her shoulders shaking. The room spun. My sister. The one person I thought I could lean on, was about to confess to a secret darker than Sharon's lies. And before she could finish, my phone rang again. The hospital. Daniel had taken a turn for the worse. I stood there, torn between two devastations, hearing the truth from my sister's lips, or running back to the hospital where my husband might be breathing his last. Frozen Clara's living room, my phone trembling in my hand. The nurse's voice on the other end of the line was sharp and urgent. Mrs. Miller, you need to come now. Your husband's condition is critical. He may not make it through the night. The world tilted. My heart raced. Daniel, the man who broke me, who betrayed me, was slipping away, and at the same time Clara, my own sister, sat before me with her face buried in her hands, holding a truth that could shatter what little strength I had left. Clara, I whispered, torn. If you know something, tell me now. Please. I don't have time. She lifted her head, her eyes swollen with guilt. Maggie, I was with Daniel before Sharon. Years ago. Long before you knew. Her words sliced through me like knives. My knees buckled, and I gripped the wall to keep from collapsing. You and Daniel? My voice cracked, disbelief twisting into rage. She nodded, tears spilling. It was a mistake. One I regret every single day. But Sharon found out and used it against him. She blackmailed him with it. She told him that if he didn't stay with her, she'd tell you everything about us. He thought keeping the secret was better than destroying you. I staggered backward, my chest heaving. Betrayal had been sitting at my dinner table, smiling at me on holidays, hugging me through my pain. My own blood. I trusted you, Clara, I whispered. I leaned on you when he left. And all this time, you were part of the reason. She sobbed. I was young. Stupid. I thought he loved me, but he loved you, Maggie. Always you. I was nothing more than a mistake. Her words stung, but before I could speak, my phone buzzed again. Another call from the hospital. This time the words were final. Mrs. Miller, if you want to say goodbye, come now. I rushed to the hospital, my children beside me, my heart shredded in pieces. When I entered Daniel's room, he looked fragile, his breath shallow. The man who once stood tall, who broke my heart, who carried secrets heavy enough to bury me, was now fading before my eyes. I sat by his side, holding his cold hand. Daniel, it's me. Maggie. His eyelids fluttered. For a moment he looked at me with those same brown eyes that once made me fall in love. His lips parted. I never stopped loving you, he whispered. I was weak. I was wrong. Forgive me. Tears blurred my vision. For a heartbeat I wanted to hate him. But in that sterile room surrounded by machines I realized forgiveness wasn't about him. It was about freeing myself. I forgive you, I whispered, my tears falling onto his hand. But I will never forget. A faint smile touched his lips. And then just like that, the monitors went flat. Daniel was gone. The days that followed were a blur of funeral arrangements, silent tears, and whispered apologies from Clara. My children looked to me, broken and confused, and I realized something important. Betrayal can shatter you, but it doesn't have to define you. People may choose others over you. They may betray you in the deepest ways, but your strength, your dignity, your will to rise again, that is yours alone. I had been abandoned, humiliated, broken, but I was still standing. And for my children, I would keep standing. So, my dear viewers, this is the end of my story. My name is Maggie, I am 60 years old, and I'm speaking to you from Atlanta, Georgia. I hope my story has touched your heart, taught you something about betrayal, forgiveness, and strength. Please, if you have followed me this far, don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss another story. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching me from? I love hearing from you all. Thank you for being with me through this journey. Broken heart.